Hello, my chicklets. Thank you for stopping by. Today we will be reading day 27 in our May Flowers event, Monte Casino Aster, Charm and Patience. This is part 2 to the Orchid story, so please make sure you have listened to that one before this one, and as always, information will be in the description. Getting access to the palace library had been a lot easier than Janus expected. Everyone was so focused on the prince and his safety that slipping out of the ballroom and into the hall had been child's play, especially for someone who was used to the be neither seen nor heard adage. Once he was in the hallway, it was as simple as finding the right door. To make his search easier, many of the doors were locked, but when he got to the fourth door, it opened up to a large library. He had never seen anything so vast in his life. True, he had worked for nobles, but no one as rich as a king. There were times that Janus begrudged royalty, having so many nice things and not sharing their wealth, but he decided not to focus on such petty complaints. He was in a library. He made his way through the different shelves, trying to figure out if there was some kind of organization system until he found the section he wanted. Philosophy. Janus had few friends, and that was partially due to his work and his station, but that was also partially due to his love of philosophy. At least, that's what he told himself. Janus knew he could be a bit too into the theories. He understood that a lot of this didn't work in practicality, and that was a completely different thought experiment that he still enjoyed. It was harder to do real-life conceptualizations, though, when you didn't have all of the information on a situation. This library could give him so much information, though. He could learn more about the world and the people in it. He could actually understand a bit more about politics, more than he could learn from gossiping nobles. Though, if he had only a short amount of time, he wanted to learn about philosophy. He took a book from the shelf, looking around for a place to sit. He would have to be mindful not to get too lost in his own readings. Curled up in a plush chair, Janus began to read. That was his first mistake. He was only a few, 30, pages into the new book when he heard someone clearing their throat. "What are you doing in here?" He had been caught. Time to lie through his teeth. "Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking for the restroom and got distracted by the impressive collection of books." The man who stood in front of him didn't seem to completely buy that, but he indulged Janus anyway. "So you decided to stop and read?" "I couldn't help myself." He smiled his most charming smile, going to stand, but the other male held out his hand, stopping Janus. "What is it you chose to read?" "The theory of the mind. So far, I understand the premise, that we are all composed of different parts and that those parts are often in conflict with one another." "Yet you hesitate." "Well, I believe that this analysis is lacking in something. For example, those people who are barely surviving will not have the same internal conflict. They know and understand only survival." "I can see your point, but what of those who are fighting to survive, yet they are also taking care of another?" Janus had seen that too many times to count. He launched into a tirade, and the man sat down in the chair next to him. Conversation between the two of them came easily as they discussed philosophy, but when things began to shift into practical applications, Janus began to falter a bit. He did his best to keep up an air of calm charm, but he knew this was out of his depth. When the clock chimed midnight, Janus used that excuse to run. "Apologies, it has gotten quite late. I really should return to the party, and if it is not still going, head home." "Did you get your chance to meet with the prince?" "No, but I don't believe he necessarily needs another suitor to keep track of. I was just here for the knowledge." The man stood as Janus did, holding his hand out for the book. Of course. Janus handed it back. Can I get your name? Janus just smirked and shook his head. Another night, perhaps. Very well. I hope to see you again soon. He held out his hand and Janus took it, only for their moment to be interrupted. Prince Logan, there you are! Sure, Janus had assumed he was a noble of some kind. He had even assumed he had come to woo the prince. He had not assumed that he had spent the past hour chatting with the prince about philosophy. He jerked his hand back, holding it to his chest, feeling exposed as his glove slipped off. I have to go. The prince looked at him with a startled expression, watching as he ran. This was not what was supposed to happen. He wasn't supposed to actually meet the prince, much less like him. Prince Logan had this air about him, like he actually cared about his people and was trying to figure out the best way to help them. Janus made his way through the hallway, into the ballroom, which did still have people in it, and out towards the entry area. Janus was ready to go home. He made it to the carriage and back to the Montresor estate in no time. Remus looked surprised when Janus burst in, immediately shouting, I didn't do it! Oh, it's just you. Back so soon? I don't want to know what you were doing to get such a reaction. I'm headed to bed. Wake me up when I'm dead. Don't tease me, Janny. You know that can be arranged. He shot Remus a look, and his teasing smile fell. That bad? All right. Get some rest, Janus. He made his way to his room, closing his eyes as he fell onto the bed, wrenching off his mask. Sure, the prince was hot, but who in their right mind decided he should also be soft-spoken and intelligent? Janus was a sucker for intelligence, but he wasn't a fool. He wasn't going to get his hopes up just because of an hour-long conversation and a library bigger than most living rooms. He just closed his eyes. He was going to sleep on it, and in the morning, he would forget about the prince. That did not work out for him. Instead of forgetting about the prince, his dreams were filled with intellectual discussions in a rose garden with tea. He really was a sap deep down, wasn't he? He groaned as he got up, looking at himself in the mirror. He was a mess from last night, but he had a job to do, and he intended on doing it well. Maybe scrubbing the floors would scrub away his idealist nature. Janus got changed into his uniform and headed towards the cleaning closet to get his supplies. The closet was right next to the dining room, and he was too tired to fight it when Remus dragged him in. Looky who came to visit us, Remus chirped, much too chipper for this early in the morning. He looked up, only to stare into the eyes of the prince, the same prince who was looking at him intensely. You didn't give me your name last night, but Roman was very helpful in that matter. Roman beamed at the praise. Hadn't he been interested in the prince? Why was he suddenly on board with this? I was hoping to invite you back to my library sometime, Janus. His name had no business sounding that good on the lips of a prince. His knees almost buckled if not for his steadfast desire to keep up appearances. That might be something we could arrange. He had managed for his voice not to crack as Prince Logan walked over, handing Janus his glove back. Wonderful. Tomorrow at noon? Certainly. Logan lit up at that before taking Janus's hand and giving it a gentle kiss, making his way out of the house. Janus didn't hear Roman squealing, too wrapped up in his own head. The prince had come all this way to find him. Maybe, just maybe, some fairy tales were real. Thank you for listening. Again, this was day 27 of our Mayflower series, Monte Casino Aster, Charm and Patience. I appreciate you listening, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.